Hello there, I'm just going to briefly explain how these cards work. So these are the archetypes cards and how they work and how you look at it in terms of the consciousness line straight through the tree of life. So this tree is a few thousand years old in terms of how it's looked at or how it's put together. And how I interpret it is I match numerology with some of the meanings of how this operates in order to give you a perspective. Okay, purely as an intuitive, sensitive person, which means that you are more in touch with your intuitive side. What is intuition in the first place? Well, intuition is the ability to see things clearly. So how does this relate to you and how does it relate to your world? Well, the archetypes are a way of identifying, usually through words. Okay, so simple words like this one just says mother, this one says slave. We could be a slave to your mother, or it could be avenger, a healer, lover, all different types. Okay, so it gives a word picture. So in your mind, it gives you a word picture, which then enables you to tell a story. So it tells a story of connection in terms of your internal world. So there are 7 layers that we can look at. Okay, so 7 layers of depth that you can look at for yourself. For yourself in your external world, who you are out there, to who you are in your internal world, as to who you are in here, and who you are in the great big picture of things. Okay, so I'm going to briefly explain how the 7 layers work in relation to you and how you can look at them. So number 1, this is you as your physical self. Okay, so your physical self, this means you're you, who you are, this physical being, and how you're represented to the world. Okay, so when you're looking at it in terms of consciousness, position 1 is about accepting your difference. So rather than see yourself as some kind of, someone who's more in touch with reality, as in you can see things more truthfully than maybe other people can, and you think, am I the freak here? Am I the strange one who no one really gets or understands, but it sort of filters out of my mouth and I don't know how this operates, but it's all a bit spooky for other people and I'm finding it a bit disconcerting and I want to withdraw and not bother with the world. Okay, so position 1 is how you relate to your external world. Is the first thing to do in terms of your consciousness is to accept your difference. Okay, accept the fact that currently you see yourself as different to the other people around you. So other people around you in terms of that they are not so aware or have any desire to be self-aware. And you may see them as desperately selfish, self-centered, and incredibly, I don't get them kind of people around you, until you start to feel more connected with your internal world. It doesn't always happen that way, but it happens for a lot of intuitive sensitives. Position 2, this is your connection between you and your outer world, and not quite in the terms of subconscious, but things where you're starting to become aware of things. So you think, how does that connect? How does that shape in my world? How does that operate? Well, maybe it's all a bit scattered. Maybe you are great at being very intuitive around some things, and then other things you're absolutely rubbish at. And you're thinking, well, how do I get this consistency? How do I get a consistency where I know which bits are the truth and which bits are part of my imagination? Well, this is in position 2, which is learning to manage your mind. Okay, so you're then more in control of being able to observe the parts that are your own fears or your own world imagination and what is truth. Okay, so the truth in terms of intuition, it just filters through as pure truth, up for your interpretation. But in order to get that more accurately, it's about learning to manage your mind, which is position 2. How does this fit with the archetypes and the monthly predictions? Well, it gives you an access point as a focus area to think about or to be aware of, to give you more of that access to managing your mind. Position 3, this is your subconscious. This is how things begin to filter. So imagine it comes from, back of your head or something, and it sort of filters through into your world in the external world, and how you interact with that and how people interact with you. So this is a transition point, okay, from personality to soul. So the personality is how you're depicted in the external world, and this is a part that everybody doesn't really think about, okay? They just think, oh, that's part of my personality. The soul is a deeper meaning, okay, where someone thinks, well, okay, I have more depth to me, or I want more depth in my life. So the subconscious tends to be your access point to the transition from your personality to your soul, some more depth as to who you are. So when you're looking at it in terms of a monthly prediction, that kind of thing, you can look at it and think, oh, okay, so I've got the pioneer in this position for the month ahead. So how do I look at that? Well, my transition from personality to soul, I've got this opportunity for a new depth of something. That's interesting. How can I utilize that? How can I bring that more into my world, or more into my awareness? That's how you can look at it. Position 4, this is the soul aspect. So this is the kind of struggle between the wrestle between a deeper part of you and this is all I am, I'm just a physical being. And this deeper part saying, no, you're more than just a physical being, you're a spiritual being with a physical body. And this wrestle of which bits for me is real. Is it my personality, or is it this deeper part of me? And it becomes this sort of kind of wrestle that happens internally and quite often externally in your world. So this is stage of where you're coping with others and their power struggles. Every intuitive sensitive finds themselves going through a period in their life where they seem to be in some kind of power struggle, either with themselves, as in the personality is trying to be dominant and the soul saying, well, hang on a second, and there's this tussle and this wrestle, or you find it happening in your external world. This can be because a lot of intuitive sensitives find themselves having to go through a period of time of being around quite narcissistic characters. So self-absorbed, self kind of people. Why does that happen? Well, because in terms of being intuitive sensitive, you'll have a natural depth in terms of an empathic connection and an empathic capability. So you're more empathic, and they think, wow, this is great. This person's going to take care of me, going to look after me, or make wonderful excuses for me. I don't have to be self-responsible. So as an intuitive sensitive, you're a lot more self-responsible. Narcissistic characters are the opposite. They do everything to be completely irresponsible, that they are not responsible for their actions. They don't feel that they should be responsible for their actions, and they never apologize. So what you find in this position in the soul's kind of wrestle, either internally or in your external world, is that you're having to cope with others and their power struggles. So when you're looking at it in terms of the monthly prediction, again, we'll use Pioneer again. When it's in position 4, you think, Pioneer, I have this opportunity, great, to manage, to pioneer a different way of looking at this person's power struggles, or try not to look at them just purely from their external actions. Look at what's driving their behavior, where it comes from, what it's to do with, and then it's much easier for you not to take it nearly as personally. You can see it more then as a learning process. You can think, oh, how can I learn about myself and make my experience in this world of opportunity that we have more depth, something that has more depth, rather than me being this terrified individual trying to just survive. Okay, gives you a viewpoint on that. Position 5. Position 5 is where will and love combine. Okay, so for anything to be manifest in your world, you have these two energies come together. So you have to have a desire, so a strong will, and there has to be some aspect of love within there. Otherwise, people don't bother. Okay, there has to be and even if it can be, for some people it can be a love of power. There has to be a direct will where they want to direct that and have a power over. So, you know, where we get our impetus, where we get our power or drive into something becoming real in our world, it requires these two aspects. So for you, as an intuitive sensitive, this is about going deeper into your world. This is about you accessing your super intuitive state. So rather than see it as a kind of hit and miss thing, it's much more of a, right, I can direct this. I can have power over my own internal world and how I see myself in the external world, or my influence within that. Okay, it doesn't mean power over people. It means power to utilize the best components of yourself. We'll use the pioneer again. You could say in position 5, that would be, oh, I have this opportunity to pioneer, maybe be the first in your family to really access this deeper part of yourself, where you can then go into this place of accurate intuition, so accurate truth, more often than not. And guess what happens when you have accurate truth? Life isn't nearly as scary. You automatically have an instant state of confidence, because you can feel that you can at least glance. If you can't see around the next corner, you can glance it and be aware of what it feels like, what it feels as to what's coming in, and what it is that there is to manage or to learn from or to experience. That's the whole point of life. That's why the soul is here. It wants to go, woof, let's experience, let's have an experience. Let's not just be terrified in the corner. Position 6. This is how you see relationship in the world. So relationship, primary relationship, is always with yourself. If you can't love yourself, it makes it very difficult for you to be able to love other people. So what this means in position 6 in terms of relationship, it's around the courage aspect. Courage, is the road to self-realization. If you want to be a self-actualized person, you've got to have courage. You've got to have the inclination to say, do you know what? This looks like a bleak place that I'm finding myself in. Do I have the courage to find my way through? And intuitive, sensitive people, certainly in my experience, are deeply courageous, even if they don't currently see themselves as that. But you will find where there is an intuitive, sensitive person, they have made their way through adversity. They have behaved differently to the people around them. People around them may have behaved very badly, but they've behaved with honor and respectability, and they've acted in a respectful way, even if they haven't been on the receiving end of that. That takes courage to go against that grain, and you see that a lot around intuitive, sensitive people. So again, if we use the pioneer as a reflection point within that, around relationships, the courage in terms of the road to self-realization or self-actualization, you could say, okay, we use this month, you know, if we're looking at it in months, the pioneer's in that position. So I need to have the courage to be the pioneer in how a relationship changes or shifts. And sometimes that could be, okay, this is a great time for me to be letting go of something that doesn't work for me anymore, or having a view or having a new view on whether something is healthy or not. Again, and having the courage to change that. That's how you can look at it. Position 7. This is the greater picture. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, we are always an adult and a child. So in terms of our internal world, we have a child self and we have the adult self. And we think, no, well, I'm just an adult, so I'm just operating in my adult all the time. No. Your child tends to be the one who commands your adult self. And you see that plenty of times in other people, and it will be in yourself as well, which is, you know, you think, how old are they? Are they 65 or 5? In fact, you may know better behaved 5-year-olds with a lot of people's different behaviour. You think, whoa, where are they within this? They seem to be in this different world and this loop of the 5-year-old. Guess what? They are, because there will be an unhealed aspect to it. So what's the purpose of life? Well, you could say it is about matching the child with the adult. Okay, where the child and the adult work together, which is, and you could say it's the older and the younger part of your soul. You could say the personality is the child, and you could say the soul is the adult. You could say, if you want to look at it in the bigger picture, whether you call it God or you call it universal light or you call it whatever you call it, you could say there's this bigger part of who we are, which is the adult, and we are merely the child. So in the grand scheme of the tree of life, that's how you would look at it, which is in position 7. It is what is you in the bigger, in the grand scheme. So you could say in yourself, it's the adult spirit of who you are is the adult, and the personality is the child. You could say the whole of you, in terms of personality and a spirit combined, what's the bigger power? You could then, if you want to relate that to a being, you could call that God, you could call that whatever it is that you choose to relate to. Well, in position 7, this is where it comes together in terms of consciousness, where you unite the inner child and the adult. Okay, so whether that is in a bigger part or it's in the little part within yourself, this is about you working with the two parts together rather than seeing them as separate entities, or the adult trying to overpower the child. Okay, that's not really how it works, but that's how we see it. So often we'll see it that we should destroy the personality and only the soul should be in charge. That's not how it really works. So this is about these two coming together. It's uniting of the inner child and the adult. So again, if you use the pioneer as the archetype, you could put this in this position and you could say, oh, okay, I need to do something. So it's pioneer is a new thing. Pioneer does it first. Is to say, oh, I need to do something new with how I see myself, or how I see my world, or right, okay. So if we do something in terms of the ultimate archetypes, we'll use the mother. We could say, I need to be more reflective in terms of how I see things match together, or what is the role of a mother? It is to unite the child and the adult self in order to create a nurturing. So it may well be for that month ahead, and the overriding energy is something to do with nurturing. So then you're one step ahead and you think, oh, okay, what do I need to focus on for this month ahead? Well, I need to focus on nurturing the relationship between the bigger aspect of me and the smaller aspect of me. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a good indication as to how you can look at this and how you can utilize that each month, or when I'm telling you how to look at it in terms of the predictions of how you put the energy together. Okay, so if you want more on these different layers of consciousness, so I'll just run through them again quickly, which is accept your difference, position 1, you in the physical world. Position 2, learn to manage your mind, which is that confusion point between which bit of my intuition is accurate and which bit's a bit dodgy, and how do I make it more accurate? Well, the key is to learn how to manage your mind. Position 3, which is how you things filter through from the subconscious. How this is the transition point between from the personality, so only being ruled by your expression in the external world, to actually realizing that there's a deeper part of you that actually connects here, and it's the transition from the personality to soul. So making that transition to realize there is a deeper part. Part 4 or Fourth layer in terms of consciousness is how to cope with others and their power struggles, or where that comes into your world where it becomes a demand. And maybe, you know, right now in your life, perhaps you're finding that a little bit of a challenge when you're having to cope with others and the power struggles, and you're thinking, am I too sensitive? I've been told I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Well, I would say for starters is to switch that off and go, hang on a second. How do I deal with this as a power struggle? What am I looking at here? Position 5, which is where will and love come together. Access your super intuitive state, which is going into that deeper part of the relationship between the personality and the soul. Position 6 is the courage required in order for, which is the road to self-realization or self-actualization, and it's all about relationship. Okay? Primary relationship is always with yourself. Very difficult to love another person unless you love yourself. Okay? Without that, tends to be codependence. Position 7 is about uniting the inner child and the adult, and whether that is in you or in the bigger scheme of things, and how that works. Okay? So remember to look at that, have that in the back of your mind in each month in terms of predictions, how to make the most of your month. That's how it's put together. If you want to know more about these different layers of consciousness, have a look in here, okay, which is Highly Intuitive People by me, of course. If you've got it already, go back to the books, go back into the chapters, and every single layer of this is in there to remind yourself. If you haven't got it, you know where to get it. I hope that's been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.